to start, Mr. President?
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Usually somebody comes up and says something.
This is so-and-so.
Yeah.
Okay, well fine, this is Nick Roltis, who will be talking on the theme of Doctor Who.
There could be other things before that you might need to announce, like the fire alarm test.
Where the emergency exits are.
Well, they're there, and they're there.
Yeah, so basically you're screwed in the stampede.
Yeah. We'll be crushed to death.
Chance of a fine thing.
No.
Now, okay. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Astronaut.
That's not good.
Astronaut, what your country can do for you. Knock knock. Morrissey.
Morrissey.
More I see you, the more I want you. Knock knock. Ambulance. Ambulance tonight. This is it for 45 minutes. Knock knock. Doctor.
Doctor Who.
And that's what I'm here to talk about. Got there eventually. Last November I went on a tour of Upper Boat. Now that might mean something to some of you, but for those that don't, what Upper Boat is, it's a studios where they film Doctor Who. And it's basically a large complex about 12 miles outside Cardiff in a little village actually called Upper Boat, and there's a pub called the Upper Boat with David Tennant or Freeman Adjuman and all that lot gone in. It's a huge complex of warehouses and with barricades and razor wire and security guards in little berets. It's like something out of the 1970s John Pertwee Doctor Who, like Inferno or something. And the reason I went on this tour was one of my fan friends, Fiona Lambert, who isn't here, won a Children in Need competition for tickets for this tour. And she could bring 3 other people, so she brought her boyfriend, me and another fan friend, Badger. So the 4 of us tootled off to Cardiff for this tour, and I wasn't really expecting much. I thought they'd be sort of like some BBC employee going, yeah, there's the TARDIS, here's the Dalek, blah, blah. But they really stage managed the thing incredibly well. I mean, even before we got in, there was Pudsey Bear dancing around, because it was for children in need, obviously. And I started the rumour that it was actually David Tennant inside the Pudsey Bear, which they didn't actually deny. And we were given a cup of tea in this huge studio complex. There must be a proper restaurant somewhere. We were shown into this Terrapin style thing with this grotty BBC canteen type affair. And outside were parked Sarah Jane's car, you know, that green thing. I don't know what make it is, it's weird, isn't it? But you see more of them around now, don't you? You know what I mean? No? A Jeep, a taxi for some reason, they must use a taxi lot in Doctor Who, and the Torchwood mobile, you know, that gigantic SUV thing with Torchwood written on it, and the blue strobing light thing, so that was just interesting. And Fiona actually went and sort of fiddled with the little Torchwood logo and broke a bit of it off. I don't know, they didn't know this. There's photos online if you care to look, but I thought I'd mention that because she's terrified that they're going to find out one day. But there were about 100 fans there, and it was mostly families and kids. And we were shown into this, actually they had to stage manage the whole thing. We had to enter through this fake TARDIS they'd set up with the Who music and Pudsey Bear, photo opportunities, and they sat us all down, rather much like this, you know, only there were 100 people there. And they had Russell T Davies come out and give this talk about, oh, we're only doing this, you know, for 2 days, we're opening the entire studios up to you, and we're only going to do this once, so you're very privileged. And there was a video message from Catherine Tate, and then one from David Tennant, and then they showed us the preview to the next Doctor, the Christmas special, the pre-title sequence. And I began to think, bloody hell, this is going to be fucking amazing. And it was. I mean, if I was a little kid, it would be one of my abiding childhood memories. Because we were shown around the Sarah Jane attic, the Torchwood hub, and the actual TARDIS itself. And what else did they do? Oh, they gave us a little goodie bag containing all sorts of Doctor Who rubbish, you know, badges and things, and a special issue of Doctor Who magazine, produced especially for that weekend. And we're actually given a piece of a Doctor Who set, a prop, from Silence of the Library. The actual books were just, you know, those sort of ring binder folders. There were those with special spines put on to make it look like books, so we were given one of those. So actual Doctor Who prop. wow, I mean, it could be anything when you look at it. It's just a great folder. And we're even shown and sworn to secrecy into this warehouse and shown this special thing that's going to appear in the new series of Torchwood, Children of Time. It's do you want to know what it is?
Yeah.
It's sworn to secrecy.
Yeah, but it's only Torchwood, it's not Doctor Who, so it doesn't count.
You can trust us.
The chair decides to ignore Mr. Freeman. It's a gigantic sex toy that Captain Jack finds. No, it's I don't want to spoil it, but it's a monster, and it's very, very impressive and a weird looking thing, a weird looking, bizarre thing. But I don't want to spoil what it is. But I was thinking through all this, the amount of care and love that the BBC have put into just these 2 days, producing all this special stuff, giving up their time weekend to do this. Russell T Davies himself showing us around, and we were taken into the talk. This is the funniest bit. We were taken, you know, where they keep all the aliens in Torchwood in that sort of vault thing behind that plexiglass where the weevils are.
Yeah.
So they took us into that set, and it's actually incredibly tiny. It's just a little corridor with all this plexiglass, and they had an Ood stood there, and the Cyberman, and the Scarecrow from the
Family of Blood.
yeah, Family of Blood. And so we're all stood there, and there are obviously people inside these costumes, and we're all stood there in front of this Cyberman. And the Cyberman, hello, stood there, and all of a sudden it went like this. And the little screams shut themselves, and it was hilarious. And then we were taken outside and into this darkened room, and there's all this dry ice, and the monsters then came out. And the bastard in the Scarecrow, I wish I knew who it was, because he took a shining to me. His photos on Facebook kept coming up to me and nuddling me. And it's quite a disturbing thing, because it's got this really distinctive walk, and they sort of walk like that, sort of really flailing about as though it's some sort of broken sort of frame. It's horrible, really. Then a Dalek came out, and obviously it's a radio controlled, all its appendages are radio controlled. I think they still have the old shuffling around inside. But there's something about it that when you see a Dalek, you know it's not real, but there's something about it, it just sends a little chill up you, because it's moving on its own. And you have childhood memories of being scared a bit. So that was a nice piece of theatre they did. The Torchwood Hub is incredibly impressive. It's as you see it on telly. Because it's filmed for HD, they have every single little detail there. The only thing wrong is there's no roof, because it goes up to a, you know, there's a shaft where they lift. They CGI that in afterwards, but the actual what you see on telly is actually there, except for the bricks in the medical room are actually painted on, you know. So there's obviously things like that, and that big door they come through is actually sort of balsa wood, and it's light as a feather. It looks really impressive. Sarah Jane's attic is a bit grotty, it has to be said. It looks quite bright and cheery on screen, but it's actually really dingy, and there's bits falling off it everywhere. And there's all these books, loads of books, just random books. I found, what did I say, there was a Who's Who, pretty obviously, Joy of Sex, Fly Fishing by J.R. Hartley, and everything. And then I won't go into too much detail about how they built up the entrance to the TARDIS. We were shown into the TARDIS, but from the outside it's just this dome thing made of plywood. You go in, and it's not that impressive, because it's only a 3/4 set. Probably even less than that. They only film it from one angle. On telly it looks huge, but it is really quite grotty and dingy. And Russell T Davies was there inside waiting for us with Julie Gardner, and all these fans, about 15 fans, wandering around the TARDIS. You know, we could go up to it, and we were there picking up the hammer. There's a photo of me with that hammer, you know, whacking the TARDIS. And you could do anything to the thing. You could leave a used condom on there or something, but there was already one there. And I thought, this is the BBC's flagship show, and they're letting all these fans wander around it and break and snap things. This is bizarre behaviour. I mean, what if somebody decides to sort of suicide bomb themselves or something? Apparently David Tennant has battered it to pieces, the TARDIS console, and that got me thinking then, I mean, well, perhaps they're not going to be using it for much longer. You know? That's why they don't care if we break it, because it won't be in Doctor Who for much longer. That's preempting a later bit of my talk. The reason I mentioned this whole tour and the absolute love and pride the BBC have clearly got in Doctor Who is, I think it's all down to one man, Russell T Davies. His achievement in bringing Doctor Who back from the dead, from beyond the dead, from a joke to what it is now, the BBC's flagship show, insanely popular, is an amazing achievement. He's carried on what Sydney and Verity started and made it into an amazing success. And he's more than a showrunner, he is a showman. If you meet him, you see him on telly, he's, oh yes, he really is like that when you meet him publicly. Privately, we all know who has ever read The Writer's Tale, his account of how he wrote Doctor Who. He is a very tormented private writer. But publicly, he is larger than life, larger as life. I spoke to him and he was like, oh, I didn't want to speak to you because you look a bit scary. I said, I met you before at Paul Cornell's wedding about 7 years ago. Oh my God, oh yes, you're that guy, yes. I said, I mentioned some of the books. Oh yes, The Fall of Iquitine. For some reason he remembered that. And it was frustrating. I wanted to have a serious chat with him, but all these fans, other fans I would say, I wouldn't distinct myself from them, talking to him, so I didn't really have a chance much to chat. And I did mention a few ideas. No, I didn't. No, come on. And that weekend really brought home to me Russell's achievements and his legacy. His impact on the show, I think, will be missed. His shadow will be, he'll cast a large shadow when he leaves. I mean, whatever you think of his style and the stories, his writing style, what his decisions he's made for Doctor Who, having the discussion with Richard in the pub about Rose, the first adventure, focused more on the companion than the Autons, and Richard would rather have a story more focused on the Autons, but Russell's approach, making it more about the normal person, I think was the key to making it a success with those normal people. Now, not everybody would agree that that was the right way to go, and there are other things Russell T Davies era did that I don't like, but then that's true of all eras of Doctor Who. None of them are perfect, and it's true of everything. Nothing is absolutely perfect, and whatever you think of the RTD era, you can't deny it's been a success. He has achieved the impossible. And there's one other thing I think he has achieved that maybe isn't quite as obvious as the success of Doctor Who, and it's around gender politics, diversity. People go on about Russell T Davies' gay agenda. When Captain Jack turns up and starts snogging people, they'll go, oh, it's RTD, he's trying to foist gayness on everybody. And they think, well, that's actually rubbish, because what RTD is actually doing is it's the humanist agenda. It's inclusive and completist, and it isn't actually Russell T Davies' viewpoint. If you think about it, okay, you've got people of different colour skin on this planet, people of different genders and sexual persuasions on this one planet. The Doctor has travelled throughout the entire universe of time and space, and the number of different colours, shapes, sizes, sexual proclivities, genders must be almost infinite. So for the Doctor to get hung up about race or gender is actually impossible and illogical. And so what Russell T Davies has done is just taken the Doctor's obvious viewpoint, because how can he have a non-diverse viewpoint, and taken it as the norm, as the basis for the show. So that Captain Jack, for example, I mean, isn't outlandish compared to something like the Tithonian Beast or Kroll or an Ood or a Sea Devil. It's all good, it's all diverse, and that's Russell T Davies' agenda, diversity, which for those of you who work in an office environment can be a bit of a bad word. If you have to go on diversity training courses, they're a bit patronising. But taken in its philosophical sense, in this sense, I think it is a good thing. So Russell, in making Captain Jack a hero to many children, and he's a non-bisexual, shag anything bloke from the future, and nobody seems to bat an eyelid about that, apart from certain fans who get their aura up, about his perceived gay agenda. I hope they're happy now then, because when Stephen Moffat takes over, he's heterosexual. So we'll have a heterosexual agenda shoved down our throats, whatever that means. It shows how ridiculous the whole gay agenda thing is. But anyway, yes, RTD has left a legacy behind him. His legacy is a popular show at the top of his game, and I've tried to avoid saying what I'm about to say, but I think there's a kernel of truth in the fact that Stephen Moffat has got a rather tough act to follow when you look at it in those terms. He's got mighty big shoes to fill, and not just because Russell T Davies is 6'7" and has got size 14 feet. Moffat. Moffat. That's what he'd be called. We've had JNT, John Nathan Turner, RTD. You can't. I don't think know what Stephen Moffat's middle name is, but Moffat or Moff he'll be called by fandom, I presume. Anyway, the guy has tremendous form as a writer. I think we can all agree that his stories have been amongst the best of the new series, and they've won awards and so on. And the guy can write in such a sublime way, which makes a writer like me gasp with awe and say, "Bastard! I hadn't thought of that." For example, he's the king of hiding things in plain sight. Remember The Empty Child with Dr. Dances? I suppose you've all seen that now. Nobody minds spoilers. If you leave, if you mind spoilers, it's 4 years old now. Everything there is on screen. It's obvious on second watching that the kid is Nancy's son. But unlike something like The Sixth Sense, when if you watch The Sixth Sense once you know the twist, watch it again, it becomes quite a hollow experience. With something like The Empty Child, Dr. Dances, there's a lot more to it than just the big reveal of the big twist. Moffat managed to make it thematically deep, having the whole thing about the Doctor's sexuality expressed through dancing, do you dance? Having the damaged Ninth Doctor have a victory where everybody survives. All that stuff about Britain and the Second World War. Hang on a minute. It's a thematically rich, sexy, witty, exciting story. The Girl in the Fireplace, it goes one further in having the twist, and I prefer the term central conceit about the reason why the ship is called Madame de Pompadour, revealed only to the viewer. The Doctor never finds out about it. It's like postmodern, if you will. And it's a rare example of Doctor Who breaking the fourth wall, but in this case subtle and artistically justified, and not having William Hartnell go "Merry Christmas to you at home" sort of thing. I'll mention Blink because that's the one that won an award as well, but I think that's his least, not to say worst, it's least impressive story, because anybody can do a clever time travel story by withholding things from the viewer. You just need a big spreadsheet or loads of post-it notes and join up all the dots and then film it in that order. So I'm not that impressed with that. Although I was impressed with Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead. Again, everything is there in plain sight. You've got a character called Dr. Moon, and it turns out to be the personification of this Dr. Moon. It is what it is, and it's just so obvious and yet so unobvious when you watch it. Anyway, so we can agree that the guy can definitely write. But can he be the P.T. Barnum figure that RTD was? Would he do something like stride around and introduce these tours of Doctor Who studios? And he's certainly not as large as life as Russell, but then again, hardly anybody is. But I don't think he actually needs to be this sort of P.T. Barnum-like figure that RTD was. I think the groundwork's been done. Russell T Davies has achieved the impossible. He's established his legacy. And Russell was just a public face of Doctor Who. Behind Russell T Davies is a team of people as dedicated as him, not just the writers, editors, directors, special effects people, costume makers, etc. They're also the multimedia platform people, the web editors and designers, the content makers, all that extremely important multimedia, multi-platform stuff that's important in this increasingly electronic age that is leaving old gits like me behind. So Stephen Moffat will inherit this team. He's not going to be given Doctor Who and nothing else. He's got this team, this commitment and experience, and the ship just has a new captain, just like the TARDIS has, and we sail into uncharted waters with reasonable confidence under Stephen Moffat. I want to talk about change now. Has anybody got any spare? I'm a bit short. Change, because Doctor Who has changed many times over its 5 decades, and I think we're on the cusp of one of the most crucial changes in its history. Certainly the most crucial change since it returned in 2005, and currently, and certainly one of the riskiest changes. Stephen Moffat, I've heard, wants to make his era distinct from Russell's era, and rightly so, because as fans we're used to discussing eras, aren't we? You know, the Hartnell, Troughton, Courtois and so on eras. But outside of that we've got the JNT era, which encompasses 4.5 Doctors, and the McCoy era and McGann era, which encompasses sideways books and audios and fandom, some of which what I've written. So to us fans it's perfectly natural that the RTD era would come to an end and the Moffat, Matt Smith era could begin. And so we're going to get not only a new Doctor, a new title sequence, new music, because Murray Gold is leaving, but, a new logo and a new TARDIS console set, so I hear, which is why they let us go on and bash the crap out of it back in November. Do you want to know what I think they're going to do to the TARDIS? It's not really a spoiler. What the theory is, the regeneration, the Tennant regeneration story, it's not the Daleks again, because that would just be, what, again? It's the Master, a decaying, deadly assassin style Master comes back and they fight inside the TARDIS and the Doctor explodes some sort of bomb inside the TARDIS which kills the Master, makes him regenerate and makes the TARDIS have to have a new lick of paint. I could be wrong, but it sounds pretty jolly exciting, doesn't it? Anyway, as well as all these cosmetic changes and changes of actors, I think they're also going to have a new approach to the storytelling. I don't mean a change from the soap opera-ish element of the Doctor companion, the companion having a family. I think that works and has been explored to varying degrees of success with Rose's family, Martha's family and Donna's family. They can keep that going as long as it's not too overwhelming. I think they're going to have to rethink the season finales and invasions of Earth. And I mean, how can you top something like Journey's End with its huge invasion of Earth and the Earth being dragged across the cosmos, Daleks being destroyed and the Earth being towed by it's just so almost over the top. How can they top that with another invasion of Earth by another alien race? And Jonathan Morris, in the latest Doctor Who magazine, echoes my thoughts almost exactly by this article called Reality TV, where he explores how there's throughout all of Doctor Who there's been invasions of Earth, and how can a series retain credibility when it comes back now, when it's been stated like in the Christmas invasion and in Last of the Time Lords and Journey's End, everybody now knows about aliens and the Earth's been invaded and dragged across the cosmos. And Johnny Morris comes up with 4 options that the BBC or Stephen Moffat is now faced with. They can either continue, ignore, avoid or reboot. He says you can ignore the problem and keep telling stories about world-changing events which don't have any permanent repercussions, but at the risk of the show's internal continuity increasingly becoming a nonsense. I would say more of a nonsense, because you already can't reconcile it. They could avoid the problem and only tell stories set in the past, the far future like the year 5 billion, or elsewhere, making sure that any alien invasions which do occur in the present day are unobtrusively clandestine in small scale, which would be a terrible shame. I think it would be a nice change, actually, that approach. You can continue to sell stories while the Earth gets invaded by aliens and maintain the current continuity. The risk being the show's version of the present day Earth bears increasingly little resemblance to his own. But what Johnny Morris reckons he should do is reboot the show's continuity. Return the fictional universe to the state it was in before Rose was broadcast, a point where the show was, to all intents and purposes, set in the real world. A world where no one encountered aliens, or a unit didn't have a flying aircraft carrier, and where every London landmark wasn't used as a secret organisation's headquarters. So that, I don't know how they're going to do it. It'd be interesting actually to see how they come up with this seemingly insurmountable problem. So anyway, change then. Great big swinging new broom change. Great, I say. Bring it on, I say. But what if people who only started watching Doctor Who in 2005? Someone aged 7 in 2005 will be 12 when Matt Smith starts in 2010. And 7 to 12 is a huge difference, more than say 22 to 29. You'll change far more between those two earlier ages. how will they react? They might be completely turned off by this complete change. I mean, Moffat's, you can't not change Doctor Who, that is not an option. They can't keep going, it will become stagnant if it went on. And as I've said, the Doctor Who works because it continually reinvents himself. Whether this new audience will follow that, I don't know. Although, if you think about it, it's been going for 5 years, and surely those who started following it in 2005 will at least have worked out or found out there's more than the 2 recent Doctors, and maybe have watched old episodes and realised there have been all these different eras, styles and approaches, and welcome the change. So maybe it will work. Well, where was I? So it's a bit of a risk carrying on Doctor Who, but they haven't really got much choice about it if they want to carry it on. They could, of course, run it for another couple of years and then stop it and then revive it again in 2000 and something, I don't know. It's almost like what they're doing now. They've given it a rest this year, and we've got the 4 2009 specials. The first of which, Planet of the Dead, hits our screens in Easter. So this year we've got all these specials on the telly, and we're going to start hearing about the filming of the 2010 series before long. We'll start getting little snippets of casting, locations, guest stars and returning monsters, episode titles, and photos of the new Doctor in his costume, which I hear is going to be a gigantic sombrero and leopard skin lycra body hugger. No, it's not. I don't know yet. It could be nothing for all I know. Doctor News. So we've got a sort of long farewell to the current Doctor, who I'm not a fan of Tennant, not really, but I am sort of going to miss him in a way. You get used, don't you? You get used. And then we're going to have a sort of gradual introduction to the 11th Doctor, resulting in the double Christmas regeneration special where he battles the Master and blows up the TARDIS. What I've mentioned, which is probably completely not what's going to be. I've got no insider knowledge. I don't even know where I heard that. I might even have dreamt it. I'll finish. Have I got, what's the time? How long have I got, Elvis?
You got 15 minutes.
15 minutes? Oh, relax. Not long.
What's that?
Oh God, I haven't thought this one out. That's it, that's all the not jokes.
Right, Nick, how did you first